At the age of 25, I found myself in one of the most dire and dangerous situations of my entire life. I was sitting on the couch looking into the eyes of a couples therapist. That was a joke, yeah. If you're not laughing, let me explain. For me, therapists are sort of like dentists. Yes, I grew up on Medicaid. When you grow up seeing Medicaid dentists, you learn that they're basically butchers of the mouth. Violent, yes. But you know what? At its best, that's what therapy felt like for me. Somebody gutting your heart, laying it on a butcher's block for dissection. Of that really morbid, inspiring introduction, why did I mention that? For one, that sort of critical introspection ultimately saved my life, and it saved my capacity to love. Sitting on that couch, I began to question the ways in which my definition of love was grounded in It was grounded in dysfunction. That word even struggled to come out. And I got to see how the way I was loving in my private life was impacting my work in the public sphere. And that's the purpose of this TED Talk, TEDx Talk. My thesis is very simple. It's that loving is for everyone. But some of us grow up in situations that make that seem untenable and unattainable. And I think the first question we have to ask is, who taught you how to love yourself? For me, I think of one of my favorite uncles. He was the sort of man who would greet you with a smile that says you can do no wrong. He would spend his Saturdays taking you and your brothers to the beach. He had these odd quirks, like religiously drinking Lipton tea. And I always knew he was staying with us if the fridge was stocked with beef kebabs and Heineken. The breakfast of champions. Eventually, he chose as a profession the exact encapsulation of his type of loving. A truck driver. What do I mean by this? Well, he was always going to and fro. It seemed to me like he was always chasing the wind. The destination far less important than the journey. I began to see this pattern in my own life. And I think as an adult, I see the reality of his curse differently, especially because I relive it. It's a pattern that shows up in myself, my community, my students. You see, some of us grow up internalizing that we must be afraid of intimacy. So we run away from it with all the control of a runaway truck, bulleting down I-25. And such a person is destined for one destination, and that's self-destruction. Who taught him to love? Me, I don't blame people. I blame systems. I blame violent, transnational systems of oppression. What does that mean? Well, I come from a family of immigrants, and I think that speaks a lot. I've got family all over the world, from Belgium to Boston. Why do we all choose to leave a country like Togo? Why did my father choose to leave home? Why did he choose to lose his youth to the American two-a-days, working the 8 to 5 shift and the 9 to 3 a.m. shift just to keep our dream alive? Chimamanda Adichie says, if you have to ask that question, then you don't know the kind of poverty that can crush the human soul. You don't understand what it means to not have a choice. This London-based poet puts it well. She says, you only run for the border when you see the whole city running as well. You see, some of you were born into comfort, and some of us are born running in situations that are unsustainable. And those two children grow up to love in very different ways. Let me make it even clearer. Some of you were born in the America that is overflowing with the milk of prosperity and the honey of opportunity. With those kind of words, you should know that's MLK. And the rest of us were born in the other America, where folks find themselves perishing alone on an island of poverty. And those two children are inextricably linked. You don't get to the wealth of America without what you did to Africans. You don't get to France without their tight chokehold on West Africa and their resources. You don't get to Belgium without what they did to Congo. And my question for King Leopold is, how did you author the genocide of 10 million Congolese and then go home and love your family, let alone your country? What taught me to love? The remnants of violent colonial systems. And when that's your teacher, you grow up seeing love as sacrifice. I want you to imagine growing up seeing the people you love, seeing the ways they love each other, and seeing that they're just trying to survive, let alone thrive. For me, it results in something I call generational solitude. It shows up in the uncle, then the brother, then the grandson, unless that cycle is interrupted. What did that look like for me? I became a character I called the 24-hour lover. It sounds appropriate for the Tinder times. Let me tell you what it meant. It meant I loved like an immigrant. We would build a home, a dream, a mirage of what could be. I would run towards it with all the glee in the world. And by the time we got to that foreign land, having no tools to thrive in it, it would reek of self-hatred. It was corrosive, like acid. So I would run to another dream, go build another home. And that cycles just continued, with all the control of a runaway truck, bulleting towards self-destruction. I didn't know it then, but I was doling out what Toni Morrison called thin love. She said, love is or it ain't. Thin love and no love at all. What does this look like in public? Well, in public, we love through bonds, be they physical or emotional. We love through threats, through fears, through insecurities. What sorts of public institutions do we build when our definition of love is what Bell Hooks calls emotional terrorism? We're living in that nightmare. I love to call it Trump's nightmare, but it existed long before him. Let me tell you what thin love looks like in my sector, in education. Thin love looks like schools designed like prisons for some of us. Thin love is a child who sits in a classroom for 12 years and never once sees somebody who looks like them. Never once reads a text, an author, a voice that dignifies their culture, their community. Thin love is when you find out your brothers might have been fine if they funded our schools like they funded their wars. So what are we to do? For me, it was simple. Actually, no, it wasn't. It was years of dysfunction. And then I thought, Hosier had it wrong. Don't take me to church. What I need is actually therapy. And once I healed, I experienced Coltrane's feat, a love supreme. It began at self-love, and then it grew with a partner, and then into communal love. It's the kind of love that grows deeper. Love as a practice of freedom. And when you experience that kind of love, the institution you build is different. 12 weeks ago, we birthed a beautiful institution called Empower Community High School out in Aurora, Colorado. It was co-created by a community design team of students, parents, and teachers who broke bread twice a month. We healed over 2 years, and then we built the school for us and by us. And let me tell you what deep love looks like at Empower. Deep love is students being comfortable. Deep love is parents like Rudiana, who volunteers 3 days out of the week to help the children heal themselves and heal their earth through a community garden. And she connects the children to indigenous philosophies and practices. Deep love looks like Fight Club, when 2 administrators stumble upon a group of boys with gloves on, boxing the hell out of each other during lunch in front of the DMV, teenagers. And in the old system, we suspend them. But you know what? When you have a system that is steeped in intimacy, steeped in tenderness, you see an opportunity. And we tell those boys, actually, why don't you fundraise, plan, build it, hire a coach, and why don't you launch Empower's first boxing program? Channel that destructive energy into creative energy. And then let's talk about why that's your best way to actually express yourself right now. This work is not rocket science, and I don't like to treat it as such. I'll leave you with this. Love might be a destination marked in infinity. For me, it's a North Star. It doesn't belong to me, it doesn't belong to you, it belongs to none of us. But loving, that belongs to everybody. Especially if we find the courage to heal.